gymnastics rings for muscle building, they can be criticized because of the instability, and the argument being that with rings, you can't create as much mechanical tension. They're not that great for bodybuilding.
I get those talking points, and in a vacuum, those things are true, where if something becomes overly unstable, you're not able to push as hard. So if you squat on a Bosu ball, it's like the prime example.
I was going to give the same example, yeah.
Exactly. So, but when you boil things down to extremes, they don't tend to apply as well in practical application. And in that regard, I find that if something is like, I like to say, one deviation less stable than using the rings, for example, the rings are not so unstable that you can't generate a lot of force. I've loaded up over 100 pounds on those for reps, and I would not be able to do that if it wasn't stable enough for me to generate that force. I find that when something is one deviation less stable, it just forces you to use better rep quality to create that stability, which leads to better gains.
Well said. I agree. And we have to think practically. Most people using rings are putting them in a squat rack. So the strap length is not that much. So what are the rings going to rotate a little bit on your chin-ups? Or it's not going to kill your performance. Same thing if it's in a squat rack and you're lowering it to the floor to do push-ups. That strap's not the equivalent of at a gymnastics center where it's hanging from a high rig. That's really unstable. So I do agree. I don't think that the inherent instability renders it poor choice for muscle building. I think there's a lot worse TikTok exercises than doing ring dips or ring push-ups.
Absolutely. And I think with regards to like auditing or seeing how good our general approach to exercise is, I find that if ring push-ups are really so unstable for you that you can't do very many of them, and you're a pretty strong guy, that's just a symptom of how you tend to approach the more stable exercises. So are you getting more lax with the lowering, the eccentric? Are you getting lax in general in terms of your stability on that? And a barbell is stable. It's just a fixed object. You can get away with it in that regard. But the rings, they're going to move if you're not intentionally moving your own body. So I just find that they're a good diagnosis for that.
And the criticism, I would say, comes from people that have just looked at the movement or haven't trained it extensively themselves, because the first time that you do a ring anything, you're shaking like mad. And after a few workouts, you really surprise yourself with how stable you can be. A good example of this in free weights is a lunge with a barbell or with dumbbells. First time you do it, you're like, this is insane. How are people doing this? Couple workouts in, you're practically on a Smith machine.
Absolutely. You're clipping off reps. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was going to use that as a piece of supporting evidence. When you look at like a raw, how well does the legs worked by the exercise kind of standpoint, lunges or Bulgarian split squat or anything like that, they work the quads better for a lot of people with regards to, are they able to stay upright? Are they able to keep their lower back out of it? Like for myself, for example, I have a shorter torso, longer legs. Split squats work better for me in that regard. And for a lot of people, they do. It's just the learning curve aspect of it.
And then applying what you just said with that principle to the rings. If, say you want to do push-ups with a wider grip to target more of your chest, and you're doing it on parallettes or hands on the floor, you're fixed there. And sometimes that wider grip can feel uncomfortable on the joints, but you want to hit your pecs. That's where the rings come in, because they move around freely, so you can get that deep stretch. And the rings, even just for this one movement of the push-up, we keep talking about it, I think it's worth its weight in gold, because it's almost a hybrid fly/wide grip bench press.
Absolutely. There's something to the way that it allows you to load not only the stretch, but the squeeze part of the movement. I really like cueing, and we'll just use another movement as an example of why that's important. I really like cueing on rows, making sure that even if you can't pause at the top, you're still squeezing your upper back and your mid back. And that, for me, was the difference between the mid back getting recruited and it not getting recruited. And much the same, it's the same on the ring push-up, but it's like built into the movement, so you don't need to be intentional with it.
Ah, I see. It's forced activation of your stabilizers in your rotator cuff and around your scapula as well.
And then also just with the chest as well, because you come in and you squeeze at the top. You don't get that on a bench press. There is a squeeze aspect to it, but it's not like a full contraction like you can get with a ring.
I think it's that encouraged retraction to protraction, which is present in many bodyweight exercises, but not so much in the bench press.
At least not naturally, I think. I think you can cue that in bench press, but it's not intuitive for people. So like I've said for years now, because it was a big talking point, I would say, when things were a lot more powerlifting centric. Oh, you can't move your scapula on the bench press. I'm like, well, you can actually. You just have to be intentional about it, and you likely aren't doing it because you've cued over retracting your scapula on bench press for so long. Your body just, it's like with anything else, it's habitual. You're just back here and pressing like that, as opposed to pressing with like a more, I don't know the biomechanical term for it, but you're a more neutral scapula.
It comes back to the blanket technique cues that are taught for exercises tend to be just about maximizing how much weight you can lift. And over time, as the fitness community has progressed, there's a lot more nuance now, which is awesome. This is the technique if you want more growth. This is the technique if you want more performance, which as someone new to training can be a bit overwhelming because Jeff Nippard said this, but a powerlifting coach said this. Who do I listen to?
I think it's why I shifted kind of less towards being purely educational, because that can get overwhelming for the viewer, into incorporating like, here's just what I like to do and here's why I like it, and then offering like an entertainment aspect to my video as well. Because like you said, what one guy says, another guy might say something different. I really just break it down to, hey, I've been doing this for a long time. Here's how it feels. If that sounds cool, you can do it too. And it's not really all that complicated.
I love that. And it reserves you the right to change your mind over time, because we all go through this, whether you're putting content out there for other people to see or just sharing some tips with a friend at the gym. Your understanding of things will evolve over time, and that's okay too.
Absolutely. Like even for me, we were talking about the weighted dips earlier. I used to like I would say that like weighted dips are a good exercise, but in my mind, I felt like they were shit because I was doing them poorly. And they're one of my favorite exercises now because I do them in a way that suits me better, works my muscles better, and allows me to progress better over a longer period of time.
We've only just scratched the surface when it comes to calisthenics in this video. Keep learning by watching this one right here.